Once upon a time, there lived a chief priest named Ekwe. People looked up to him because he had special powers that could do amazing things. But instead of using his powers to help others, he often used them in bad ways that caused trouble in the village. One peaceful morning, Ekwe was walking to an important meeting. On his way, he saw a beautiful maiden approach with a water pot. She was obviously going to the stream. Her name was Adugo. Respectfully, Adugo smiled at him and greeted him, and Ekwe responded to her greeting. Instead of continuing his walk to his meeting, Ekwe stood and was watching Adugo's waist as she walked. He felt a strong temptation to follow her, and unable to overcome this temptation, he quietly trailed behind her without her knowing. When they reached a narrow, bushy path leading to the stream, Ekwe took out a charm from his bag and touched Adugo with it. Immediately, Adugo turned around, and without saying a word, she began to follow Ekwe into the thick bush where no one could see them. Moments later, Adugo got home crying loudly. Her clothes were a bit torn, and she was bleeding. Seeing her in this state, her parents were filled with worry and rushed to her side. They asked her what happened, but Adugo, still crying, could not explain why she was bleeding. She told her parent that she woke up in the bush and saw that she was bleeding. Her parents thought she was not seeing the truth. They grew frustrated and scolded her, hoping she would reveal the truth. However, Adugo kept insisting that she didn't know what had occurred. Her mother broke down in tears, crying out loud because someone had taken advantage of her daughter. Her father, Mazi Adichie, was very angry. He couldn't understand why his daughter had no clear explanation of what happened to her. He said aloud that he must find out who did such a thing to his daughter. Later that day, Mazi Adichie decided to take Adugo to Ekwe, the powerful chief priest. He hoped Ekwe could use his magic to uncover the truth. Adugo, still shaking and confused, followed her father to Ekwe's home. When they arrived at Ekwe's place, Mazi Adichie explained the situation to Ekwe, his voice filled with fury and desperation. He told Ekwe that someone had defiled his daughter and that he wanted Ekwe to help him lay a deadly curse on that person responsible. Mazi Adichie believed that with Ekwe's powerful magic, the person who had done such terrible thing to his daughter would never go unpunished. After doing some incantations, Ekwe finally spoke to Mazi Adichie. He told him that what had happened to his daughter was done by one of the agents of the gods. Mazi Adichie was confused and troubled by this explanation. He couldn't understand why the gods would allow such a terrible thing to happen to his daughter. Seeking answers, Mazi Adichie asked Ekwe what wrong he had done to deserve this. He wanted to know why the gods would choose his daughter for such a misfortune. Ekwe laughed softly and told Mazi Adichie that he had done nothing wrong. He explained that what happened to Adugo could happen to anyone, that the gods chose his daughter not because of any offense, but because she was special and worthy in their eyes. Ekwe went on to say that Mazi Adichie should feel honored, not angry. He said the gods had selected Adugu for their special spiritual work because they found her suitable. He assured Mazi Adichie that this was a sign of the gods' favor and that he should be happy and proud that his daughter was chosen by the gods for such an important task. Mazi Adichie struggled to accept this explanation. It was difficult for him to reconcile the pain and suffering of his daughter with the idea of divine favor. Ekwe's words were meant to comfort, but they left Mazi Adichie with many more questions and a heavy heart. Ekwe, still smiling, told Mazi Adichie to go home and rejoice that he would soon see the good works of the gods. One day, a man named Mazi Ekenta visited Ekwe. He came with a problem that had been troubling him for some time. Mazi Ekenta explained to Ekwe that he had seen a small piece of land at a very nice location, and ever since he saw it, he couldn't stop thinking about it. He liked the location very much and wanted to own that land. Mazi Ekenta continued, telling Ekwe that the land belonged to a young man named Somadina, who recently lost both of his parents. Mazi Ekenta said he had approached Somadina to see if he would sell the land. Somadina, however, refused and told Mazi Ekenta that he could not sell the land because it was the only land his father left for him. But Mazi Ekenta was obsessed with the land. He couldn't get it out of his mind. He liked the location so much that he was determined to have it no matter what. Desperate and unwilling to accept Somadina's refusal, Mazi Ekenta decided to take a drastic step. Mazi Ekenta told Ekwe that he wanted to forcefully claim ownership of that land. So, he needed Ekwe's powerful influence to make the king support his claim and pass judgment in his favor. Mazi Ekenta believed that with Ekwe's help, he could convince the king to declare the land his, despite Somadina's rightful ownership. Ekwe smiled and told Mazi Ekenta that if he paid 300 cowries, his request would be granted. The amount Ekwe asked for was very high, but Mazi Ekenta agreed to pay it because he believed the land was worth more than the price. After receiving the money, Ekwe began performing some incantations. When he was done, he handed Mazi Ekenta a ring. Ekwe told him that the deed was done. He instructed Mazi Ekenta to go and tell Somadina to stay away from the land. Ekwe assured him that Somadina would resist and fight back, and that the dispute would eventually reach the king. Ekwe explained that on the day the matter would be brought before the king would rule in Mazi Ekenta's favor. He would pronounce that the land belonged to Mazi Ekenta. Days later, the dispute over the land was brought before the king. Mazi Ekenta and Somadina both stood before the king, each presenting their side of the story. Somadina explained how the land was the only thing his late father had left for him, while Mazi Ekenta argued that he had a right to the land. Just as Ekwe had promised, the king listened to both sides, but eventually ruled in favor of Mazi Ekenta. The king declared that the land now belonged to Mazi Ekenta, and he warned Somadina that if he ever set foot on the land again, he would be severely punished. Somadina was heartbroken and felt betrayed. The land meant so much to him as a memory of his father. At night, Somadina sat alone in his small hut, crying and feeling hopeless. He prayed and begged the gods to come to his aid and fight for him. He asked them to see the injustice that had been done and to help him get his land back. The next day, Mazi Ekenta suddenly went mad. He wandered through the village laughing uncontrollably and saying that it was greed and evil that made him run mad. People watched in shock and fear upon realizing that he was mad. That same day, the king, who had ruled in favor of Mazi Ekenta, started to come back to his senses. He realized that he had made a mistake and that the land truly belonged to Somadina. He felt a deep sense of regret for his unfair judgments and compensated Somadina. That same day, Ekwe was found lying dead in his hut.